Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's first Bible study for the series of this year. We are currently in the Beast series, and we're going to be talking about the book of Daniel, the four beasts in the book of Daniel, the two beasts in the book of Revelations, the beast system, and some of the key players of the end times as it relates to the rise of the Antichrist. Okay, so let's get started. I will be reading. Um, we'll be coming out of Daniel tonight's session, verses 1 through 4. And let's get started. So, Daniel 1 says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream, and visions passed through his mind as he was lying in bed. He wrote down the substance of his dream. Verse 2 says, and in my vision at night I looked, and there before me were the four winds of heaven, churning up the great sea. Four great beasts, each different from the others, came out of the sea. And the last verse says, the first was like a lion, and it had wings of an eagle. And I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood on 2 feet like a human being, and the mind. Let's see here. Of a human was given to it, and the mind of a human was given to it. So we see that the first beast to rise was the beast of Babylon. And it came up out of, the book says, the Great Sea. When we talk about the Great Sea, this is referencing nations, right? So a nation is a type of social organization where a collective identity, a national identity has emerged from a combination of uh, shared features across a given population, such as language, culture. And when we talk about culture, we're talking about music, food, clothing, ethnicity, territory, history, or society. And so it's saying that this beast rose out of the great sea. And so that means it lifted itself up from above the other nations, right? And became prominent. And it says that the four winds stirred up the sea. And so when we talk about the four winds, there are four corners of the earth: the north wind, the south wind, the east wind, and the west wind. And each of these are symbolic. The north wind is symbolic of strength, judgment, and divine power. Um, and oftentimes, this power is destructive. So you can reference that in uh, Psalms 48, 1 through 2, Isaiah 14, 13 through 14. And in Isaiah 14, 13 through 14, it's talking about a rebellious heart and symbolizes a lofty and exalted place associated um, with the judgment of God, right? Again, in Ezekiel 1 and 4, and this showed a manifestation of God's glory and his judgment. Jeremiah 1, 13 through 14, and Daniel again, 11 and 6. When we get to the west wind symbolizes movement and divine intervention, or the direction of certain events. So, for example, in Exodus 10:19, the west wind was used to remove the plague, um, and it demonstrates that God is in control over nature and his ability to bring deliverance even through natural forces, right? But if we go on over to the to the east wind, then the east wind is destructive, or it's a judgmental force. Represents something. It represents something strong. It represents harshness, and often bringing about God's judgment or natural calamities. Right? We can see that in Genesis 41:6, when when there was famine and scarcity. In Exodus 10:13, he brought in the plagues. And so the east wind brought in the plague, but the west wind pushed it out, right? Um, and so we find then that all of these winds are stirring. And so when I think of wind stirring and winds colliding different from different regions, then it makes me think of a hurricane. It makes me think of a cyclone. It makes me think of um, a windstorm, right? And so there was this colliding of all of these things. It was the colliding of God's power. It was and all of them deal with judgment in some way, right? Understanding that judgment is not always negative, because judgment is generally, right, when you go to court, and the judge pronounces a judgment for somebody, that judgment is in their favor. um and another, they are um they're judged, right? They're punished, right? There's some level of um a punitive measure. So, well, one is rewarded, another is punished. And so we find then that these winds um, stirred up the great sea, and out of these nations arose a nation, the nation of Babylon, right? And so, why is this important? So, in order to really get an understanding, um, we need to take a look at who Babylon was. What were the characteristics of Babylon? Who did they worship? And what was happening, right? And so, give me just 1 second. Uh, all right. So this beast, its appearance is described as a lion with eagle's wings. These are two of nature's greatest animals. The lion is often referred to as the king of the jungle. It symbolizes strength and power and majesty, and and these traits were associated with Babylon, right? So then we can see then that Babylon was a strong nation at this time. Um, and it had eagle's wings. Now, eagles, they're a great bird. They soar high. Um, Eagles are also strong. Eagles have sharp vision, and they have a tenacity like none other. Um, they're said to be nurturing, gentle, and attentive to their young, but not to their foes. They often fly alone, and they don't hang out with the chickens, right? Uh, Low life. They soar high, so they have great vision and range from their position. But it was said that these wings were plucked off. and it was lifted from the ground to stand on 2 feet like a man, and it's given the heart of a man, almost symbolizing a level of emotion. And so a lot of ancient gods were served in Babylon. And we're going to get to, in a little bit, we're going to get to how these gods that they served and worshiped kind of dictated their rulership, right? The wings of this eagle also represents the swiftness of the far-reaching dominion of Babylon. So they were taking territory. They were the empire of their time, especially under the rule and reign of King Nebuchadnezzar. And he had expanded this empire rapidly. It was done in a quick succession, right? But the plucking of the wings could possibly symbolize the humbling of Babylon's power. Remember, Nebuchadnezzar fell into madness over in Daniel chapter 4, verses 8, right? Around about the 28th and 37th verse. He had got lifted up. Daniel had talked to him about it. He told him what he saw. And for a moment, he was humble. And then something switched, and all of a sudden now he's exalting himself above Yahweh. He's exalting himself above God. And as a result, he was brought down low. And if you recall, his madness drove him to even grow like feathers of some sort. And so here we have his pride bringing him down. His pride humbled him. And as a matter of fact, when his mind was restored, he gave all praise to Yahweh. So this transformation from a beast to a man may indicate a shift from a brute force to a more humanized and humbled state. So he started off strong, and then now he has been brought down. So this could also reflect Nebuchadnezzar's personal journey of recognizing the true and living God, and that God is truly the ruler of all. So while you may be in a position of authority of a nation, and you think that you are making the plays, ultimately it's God the Father who is in all control. So we find then God's sovereignty through this vision, that God allows kingdoms to rise and fall according to his purposes. We are not in control. Regardless of what plays these world leaders make, they are still in the hand of God and being moved and molded by the hand of God. Man is not in control. And so then we find then there's human pride versus divine rule, right? And the plucking of the wings and the transformation of the beast highlights how God humbles the proud and exalts those who acknowledge him. So there was a transition of kingdoms. Babylon was the first beast, and it sets the stage for the rise and the fall of subsequent kingdoms, pointing toward the ultimate establishment of God's eternal kingdom. And so this imagery reinforces the themes of divine judgment, human accountability, and the transient nature of earthly powers, right? It's going to ebb and flow. So let's take a look at Babylon. So Babylon, the empire, succeeded because they rebelled against Assyria. And during the Neo-Babylon Empire, it emerged after the fall of the Assyrians, right? and they were some wicked people. Like the Assyrians, they killed people brutally, right? And so then Babylon then forms alliances with the Medes, who helped to destroy the Assyrian capital of Nineveh. Nineveh, that same place that Jonah was sent to tell the children of Israel to repent, right? And so this was a great military victory, and it was critical and crucial for the rise of the Babylonian Empire. And so during this time, they were under the strategic leadership of Nebuchadnezzar, and but it was under his son. And look, don't judge me on how I pronounce this word. Nabopolassar's son, and he expanded the empire to its greatest extent. So he was known for conquering Jerusalem and other key regions in the Levant. And so here we have the children of Israel. They had disobeyed. They have been warned time after time that if they didn't return to their first love, that they would be exiled. And now that time has come, right? And so um, during this time, Babylon has um, dominated the Near East. They have controlled vast territories from the Mesopotamia area region to Eastern Mediterranean, including parts of modern day Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and Jordan. They had achieved great economic prosperity. And because of their location, um, they they fostered trade and agriculture, which brought in more revenue, right? So they were a economic power. They were the world power of its time. They have become a hub of commerce, connecting the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean through trade routes. Culturally and architecturally, they had achieved um, great achievements and grandeur. They have one of the seven wonders of the world, the garden. What is it called? The Garden of Babylon. Um, however, they constructed the Ishtar Gate, and Ishtar was a god. That's where they get Easter from, right? So again, they had all of these gods that they served and that they worshiped. Oh yeah, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, and it was, as I said, it's um, considered to be one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. And then there was Ziggurat at Tamanke, um, which may be what inspired, or what some scholars have said inspired, um, the Tower of Babel. And the Tower of Babel was created in regard to the god uh, Marduk. I think I'm saying that word. Marduk, yes. He was the chief Babylonian god, and he was considered to symbolize the empire's power. Um, and so, out of this same god Marduk is where we get the Gilgamesh and the Anunnaki and all of these things from um, ancient Egypt that is talked about. And so, these gods inspired the names of the days of the week. As I was doing a different study regarding um, the months of the years and the days of the week, when you get um, to September, October, November, and December, those were actually numbers. And they changed the months to worship and reverence gods or leaders. For example, like the month of August is named after Caesar Augustus, right? The month of January, which wasn't the first month of the year, um, they named it after the god of Janus. And so all of these things have caused the rise um, of Babylon, and it was also the thing that caused its demise because they were full of moral and political decay as a result of weak leadership and internal divisions that undermined their stability. And so we're looking all of these things because, unfortunately, and contrary to popular belief, that um, religion and politics, from a biblical perspective, they go together. You see them. It's what causes um, a lot of the division and the divides, right? Um, and so if we're looking at these beasts, and we're going to take a look at how all of these beasts fit together, and helping project a picture of what times will look like when the rise of the Antichrist appears, right? Um, and so there was some external pressure um, from Persia under Cyrus, um, which again provided a powerful and organized rival. And the overextension of Babylon with all of its territory and not being able to manage it as well also caused the demise. And we have to understand that the first thing that God gave Adam and Eve in the garden was territory. He gave them a domain that they were to cultivate, that they were to manage, that they were to rule, that they were to govern. And so, as believers, God has given us territory, and the angels come down to measure our territory or that which we have lost to the hands of the enemy, right? And so, we're talking about advancing God's kingdom and preparing it for the return of Jesus Christ, for him to rule and to show that he is God of gods and Lord of lords and King of kings, and he is above all of all the gods that they have worshiped, that they have given paid homage to, that they have bowed to in order to receive wealth and prosperity and notoriety and all of these things. Because uh it would appear that when you practice sorcery and witchcraft, that whatever you ask for is given to you immediately, whereas when you pray to the true and living God, he doesn't always answer so quickly. And so this causes people to divert their attention and their focus from God the Father to that of the enemy, to that of other gods, because it seems as though those gods are answering when God has denied them. And so that causes, what's the word I'm looking for? Disappointment in the people, right? It causes frustration in the people. It causes a lack of loyalty to the one, to the creator, to Elohim, to the one that created man in the first place, to the one that has provided you with everything that you needed to to do and accomplish all that he placed you here in the earth to do. And so we find then that Babylon was used by God as an instrument of judgment, particularly against Judah um, and the children of Israel being exiled um, during a time. And however, its fall was prophesied by Isaiah in chapter 13, Jeremiah in chapter 51. Again, This symbolized divine judgment against pride, idolatry, and rebellion. And so anytime you see a nation that is risen, and it has pride, it has idolatry, and it is rebellious against the true and living God, then we know that nation will eventually fall. And so this is a reminder to us of the fleeting nature of human empires and the ultimate authority that God has over history. So I know this was a little short, but this is to give us a basis for where we're getting ready to go. Remember, the four winds stirred up the nations. That means there was calamity. That means that there was judgments. That means that there was things happening in the earth that caused a particular region or nation to rise in great power. Part of it was to bring the children of Israel back to their first love. And so this is the first beast, the one that was made of a lion. Um, Before I close out, let's just take a really quick look at um, uh, the Babylonian god, Marduk. And he was said to be the god of creation, justice, magic, and the patron deity, right, for Babylon, and was associated with their agriculture, their healing, and compassion, right? And so he's claiming to be the God of creation. And we know this isn't so. He's associated with the Greek god of Zeus, and the Romans associated him with the planet Jupiter. And so his story became popular because he had began to be recognized as the supreme God. And we know that Yahweh is the supreme God. He's the all sufficient one. He is the great I am. And so we're going to take a look at, by the time we get to the beast of Revelations, right, how all of this is going to connect and give us a visualization of what was happening and what is going to happen at the rise of the Antichrist and all of these nations. I know this was kind of foundational. A lot of history is involved, but we are going to talk about it and connect the dots to make it make sense, and so that we have an understanding of what John the Revelator was trying to tell us in the book of Revelations as it related to the beast. Real quick, in way of announcements, I am hosting a conference in the month of November 1st. It is the Apostolic Teaching Intensive. The conference is Just Be. And so we're going to talk about being just who God created you to be, to walk and stand in the power that God has created you, right? And to do it the authentically the way you do it, and that's okay. And we're going to look at it from the lens of the teaching gift and the teaching anointing and the teaching office, as well as through what that looks like through the fivefold. We're going to be talking about how to teach people that that are unbelievers, that are maybe a prostitute or a drug dealer or a gangbanger, like those people that we would consider outreach, right? Because they have to receive the word in a different way, and you can't teach them the way you would teach somebody in the church. We're going to take a look at how to teach folks that are in the church, that's been in the church for a long time, because there's a certain way that they expect to receive the word and have it broken down for them. We're going to talk about those that have been in the church, but they read the word and they don't really get it, right? And so we're going to talk about how to reach them. We're going to talk about how to teach those that are anointed to teach the word, because they too have a different palette and a different lens that they receive it. Everybody can't just teach them, right? So we're going to learn tools um, to put in our arsenal to reach them, as well as how to teach the creative, the dancers, the mimers, the musicians, the praise and worship leaders, those that may be gifted in the arts of any kind, right? Um, because they learn a different way. And so we're going to take a look at how to reach those people. We're going to take a look at it through the fivefold ministry. So those that are teaching from a prophetic lens, teaching from an apostolic lens, teaching from an evangelistic lens, teaching from a pastoral lens, teaching from even the teacher lens, right? We're going to take a look at that, and that's going to be held November the 1st of 2025. The tickets are $35 for entry or 50 for VIP. And so I'm looking forward to this event. Stay tuned. Flyers are coming out soon where you can register and go online, get your seat at the table to be there. You don't want to miss this. It's going to be some great information. We're bringing a few people in from out of town, and they're going to pour into you. There's going to be a level of impartation so that you can take what you receive and go and apply it immediately. Well, that's all I have for today. I have enjoyed you guys. We are on every last Friday of the month at 6 o'clock. Normally, it would be at 6. I had to move it up because of a conflict in scheduling. But look for me next month. We will be talking about the second beast of Daniel. That second beast, the one that looked like a lion. We're gonna talk. I mean, excuse me, like a bear. So we're gonna talk about the beast that rose up that looked like a bear. We're gonna talk about who that beast is and who it represents, what its characteristics are, and how that applies. So we are building. We're gonna build until we get the full picture of what it is that Abba Father is trying to reveal to us so that we could be prepared for these end times and not be deceived, regardless of what is being shown to us. Amen. So I thank you for joining me on today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Be blessed.